Madam Vice Chancellor, ladies and gentlemen, Carleton graduates, I have the great honor of presenting to you today the Right Honorable Adrienne Clarkson. Through her role as a journalist and leading public figure, Madam Clarkson has transformed our understanding of what it means to be Canadian and heightened our appreciation of the great diversity that exists within this country. She conveys pride in her roots, pride in being Canadian, and she inspires all of us to feel the same way. Born in Hong Kong, Adrienne Clarkson came to Canada as a refugee with her family during the Second World War. She was raised in Ottawa, after which she completed her undergraduate and graduate degrees in English literature at the University of Toronto's Trinity College. She then pursued postgraduate work at the Sorbonne in France. Madam Clarkson has had a distinguished career in broadcasting, journalism, the arts, and public service. From 1965 to 87, she worked as the host, writer, and producer of several influential programs on CBC television, including Take 30, Adrienne at Large, and The Fifth Estate. She has authored 5 books and contributed numerous articles to major newspapers, magazines, and anthologies across Canada. Her best-selling memoir, Heart Manners, published in 2006, was received with acclaim. Earlier this year, her biography of Dr. Norman Bethune appeared in the Extraordinary Canadian series published by Penguin Canada. Madam Clarkson served as the First Agent General for Ontario and Paris from 1982 to 87. She was president of McClelland and Stewart from 87 to 88. In 1988, she returned to broadcasting as an executive producer and host of the CBC's National Arts Showcase, Adrienne Clarkson Presents, and during this period, she also directed several films. She later served as chairwoman to the Board of Trustees to the Museum of Civilization, and as president of the executive board of the International Music Center, which is the International Audiovisual Association of Music, Dance, and Cultural Programmers based in Vienna, Austria. Her work has been recognized with numerous honorary doctorates. She is an honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons, Trinity College, and the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, and Companion of the Order of Canada. I'm going to run out of breath, there's so much here. She's also received international acclaim and honors, including the Grand Cross of the Order of Pleiades from France and the Order of Friendship of the Russian Federation, the only Canadian to be so honored. As we all know, in 1999, Adrienne Clarkson was sworn as Canada's 26th Governor General. Her tenure as Governor General had many noteworthy elements. This includes the inspiration she brought to the Canadian Armed Forces when she visited the troops in Kosovo, the Persian Gulf, and Afghanistan. Her dedication to the Canadian Armed Forces continues today, as she was appointed the Colonel-in-Chief of the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, the first Canadian to be Colonel-in-Chief of a Canadian regiment. The Princess Patricia Regiment has been serving in Afghanistan, and she visited there in August of last year. Adrienne Clarkson has been especially passionate in her social activism and dedication to the Aboriginal peoples of Canada. In recognition of her role, the Blood Tribe of Alberta inducted her to the ranks of an honorary chief, and she retains the name they bestowed upon her, the grandmother of many nations. Her passionate interest in Canada's North culminated in the creation of the Governor-General's Northern Medal, awarded annually to a Northern citizen whose work has helped affirm the Canadian North as part of our national identity. After leaving the office of Governor-General, Adrienne Clarkson founded the Institute for Canadian Citizenship and chairs it with her husband, John Ralston Saul. The Institute's purpose is to help acculturate new Canadians into mainstream Canadian life. Madam President and Vice Chancellor, in recognition of an outstanding contribution to the public life of Canada as a journalist and a broadcaster, and a representative of the Canadian people, I request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, upon the Right Honorable Adrienne Clarkson.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Senate and by the board at Carleton University, I hereby bestow upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereto pertaining. Congratulations. Thank you. Dr. Clarkson, would you please address Convocation?
Pleasure. Madam President, Vice Chancellor, Chairman of the Board, Deans, members of the faculty, graduates, students, family members, and special guests. It's wonderful to come back to Ottawa to receive an honorary degree from Carleton University. You know that this university and I arrived in Ottawa at about the same time in 1942. And when I think of it, our development has probably gone on side by side without my being fully aware of it until I did a bit of research. When I arrived with my family as a refugee in the summer of 1942, we fetched up on the shore of the Ottawa River on Sussex Street, my father, my mother, my brother, and I, with one suitcase apiece. And Carleton was starting in a few little buildings as an association for the advancement of learning. We've gone a long way together since. We also share another thing, which I didn't know till I was robing, which is that you have the symbol of the phoenix rising from the ashes and being born anew as a symbol on your mace. And that is my personal symbol as Governor General and on my coat of arms. The idea that you can rise out of what seems like total destruction into a new life and a new way of being. I think that Carleton University has found this way of being in the capital of Canada and has shown itself to be an important showcase for the kind of talents that came to bear on this city and in this country. The names of Norman Robertson, Norman Patterson, Gerhard Hertzberg, Arthur Kruger, all reverberate with service to the public good and to the international world of excellence. It's an honor for me to be in their company and among you today. I grew up in Ottawa, and I have to say it was certainly a very different place in the 40s and 50s than it is now. I look out among you, and I see the faces of people whose roots come from all over the world, who have come to make Canada the kind of country which is unique in the world, a model of tolerance and understanding. During my lifetime, both here in Ottawa and later in Toronto, I have seen our country evolve in really that very short time so that we are inclined to welcome diversity and to enjoy change. In 1961, the year after I graduated for the first time from university, 40% of Canadians said in a survey that we should prevent the immigration of non-whites to Canada. Looking out at an audience like this one, or all the students that I see at elementary and high schools, even in Nunavut, which I've just returned from last week in the Arctic, and in universities all across this country, I know that only a tiny minority of Canadians hold such views today. Or if some of them do, they know that it is no longer acceptable to voice them. What an astonishing development in just over a generation. I founded the Institute for Canadian Citizenship when I left Rideau Hall in 2005, and I'm proud of the fact that we are helping new Canadians integrate as quickly as possible into our mainstream social, political, and cultural life. I want to help accelerate our desire for inclusiveness, for widening our door to the world, because I know that it is central to the strength of our country and the most distinctive element that makes us Canadian. As the first immigrant to become Governor General, I feel a responsibility to help others know that all of Canada is what they can dream and help build to be. I hope that you are already contributing to it. I know that opportunities for further contribution certainly await you. I look out among you, I look out at your families, I can see the pride in their faces. I know how many of you are children of people who have not gone to university. I was one of you just barely short of 50 years ago, and I think I was in many ways one of the last years where university was considered to be an exceptional and incredible privilege. In 1960, those of us who went to university and graduated did not necessarily expect that that was where we were going to end up. I know that many more of you feel that still today, but our systems of education have so improved that many people are now able to say that they have children who have gone to university as they did. For those of you who have come to this country because you know that it's going to provide a better future for you and your children, and that your children are doing well and will fulfill the faith that you have placed in them, I congratulate you. There is nothing more fulfilling than to see your child or grandchild live the dream that you have worked so hard to bring into place. I can tell you that these faces that I see are not the faces I saw nearly 50 years ago at the University of Toronto, but that this is the way Canada has evolved, and that we are very fortunate that it has done so in this way. All of you are waiting now to be able to contribute to the world, even if you don't know that is what you have to do. Because if you don't do it, you're going to shortchange yourselves, and you're going to shortchange the people who had belief in you to create a country like Canada, a province like Ontario that encourages you to higher education. This has been a privilege for you. And the years that have been given to you in which your primary job was to discover, to grow, to learn to think, to organize your outlook. I want to tell you that if you're just graduating, it is much too early to be cynical about the world and about people who do things in the world. It's also too easy and lazy. If you want to be that, that's up to you. There is always room for improvement, even if some of the things you think may be true. But you can be part of that improvement. You can be part of it by saying to yourself, I live today, and although tomorrow things may not be so great, nothing can undo or make worthless what efforts I have put into my life and to the life of others so far. And it's never too early for you to say that. I don't know exactly where the cynicism comes from, but I certainly hope that some of it may be dispelled now that we are going through a rough economic period. When things are going boomingly well and jobs are lying on the ground ready to be picked up, and all you can think about is when you can have your first Bimmer or BlackBerry, your mind does not tend to focus on what is true and good and real. None of us are entitled to a world of material goods, and material goods are not what matters. I'd like to quote you something that Leonard Cohen said, which I totally believe in. He said, I've never worked just to earn money, but I like to be paid for what I do. Study that sentence and it will have some meaning for you. Never do anything just because there's money in it. Do it because it has meaning, and just make sure that you're paid as well, if not perhaps slightly better, than the other person who can do the same thing. But nobody has ever promised you that you will get anything without effort. And in a world which seems to value the utilitarian, the commercial, and the material, you have a chance to make a difference in the way in which you approach what must necessarily be a way to earn your living. For one thing, look at your own character and see if you can really continue or want to strive for excellence, which is what really counts. Anybody who tells you anything different is trying to delude you or to use you. If you don't want to make that effort, consign yourself to a life of mediocrity and ultimately disappointment. I don't mean that you should feel that you failed if you haven't become Secretary General to United Nations by the time you're 40 or a billionaire. It simply means that you have to nourish your own enthusiasm, look at your own talents and what they offer, and you keep investing in your own capabilities. It also means looking at how you can contribute to your community of people using the character and the talents that you can develop. As you've heard in my citation, I have just completed a book on Norman Bethune, arguably, I think, the greatest Canadian who ever lived. And that's not just because he's the most famous in the world. By sheer numbers alone, his name as a Canadian is known to 1.5 billion Chinese people, and he has his Chinese name, Bai Chuan. He is an example of somebody to whom the word mediocrity did not exist. He is somebody who picked up and went to Spain immediately upon hearing that the legitimate government had been overthrown by Franco and the fascists in order to serve as a doctor, not with anybody, not in anybody's army, but just himself. And in that time of 7 months, invented a system of blood transfusion that saved hundreds and hundreds of lives. He was the one who returned from there to raise money for the Spanish Civil War cause and subsequently went to China to work against the Japanese invasion with the Chinese, with Mao Zedong's Eighth Route Army, for 20 months as the only doctor among 15 million people, the doctor not only to the army, but to all the civilians whose area he passed through, operating day and night, sometimes 15 or 20 times a day, living under conditions which we would consider to be singularly appalling, and in the end dying of blood poisoning as he operated without gloves when the gloves ran out. This was a man who tried to start universal Medicare in Quebec in 1935-36 with a group of people because he believed that all human beings were equal and therefore deserved equal medical care. This was a man who could have made an enormous fortune as a thoracic surgeon out of the glamorous teaching hospital of McGill, the Royal Victoria Hospital, but who devoted himself only to humanity because he saw there was a need and he saw that some of his skills could fulfill that. To him, mediocrity was just not an option. The best definition of mediocrity, I think, is made by Vincent van Gogh in one of his letters to his brother Theo. As you know, Van Gogh was not successful during his lifetime. He didn't sell a single painting while he was alive. We all know what happened to the value and the acceptance of his appreciation after his death. But he said to his brother, "I don't want to become mediocre." How does one become mediocre? By compromising, by making concessions, today in this matter, tomorrow in another, according to the dictates of the world, by never contradicting the world, and by always swallowing public opinion. I don't think anyone has ever summed it up more succinctly. Mediocrity is safe and easy and comfortable, and therefore should be avoided at all costs. Because the purpose of life is not to be safe, easy, and comfortable. I believe that the purpose of one's own life is to leave nobody and nothing indifferent. It means taking risks, often in small but very significant and often daily choices. It may not be universally approved. You may not be thought to be warm or cuddly or one of the guys. Most importantly, it means not shrinking at the prospect that you might be isolated and lonely and not hesitating for fear of being misunderstood. If you are forging ahead in order to make a difference, to try and improve what you see as incompetence or injustice, then it's certain that you may not be understood by those who are only looking for comfort and ease. You may not be listening to the same voice as everyone else seems to be listening to. To achieve excellence, you must listen to the best that's within you, the voice that will help you to live what Plato called the examined life, the one that is worth living. Life will never guarantee you an easy ride, and you are not going to meet with approval of everything you do. Much that you do will cause you pain. Try to avoid making it cause others pain. To quote Leonard again, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. You're at an age where you are deeply self-concerned, wondering where your life will go, wondering whom you're going to share it with. But besides finding your own path, you have to have a deep acknowledgement of the importance and the reality of other people. Letting the light get in means a willingness to accept that what you learn, painful though it may be, is not necessarily going to make your life easier in the long term, in the short term. People who think that life can be reduced to social interactions, as though life were just a series of economic exchanges or barters, do not understand that life at its fullest, at its most well-lived, does not treat other people as commodities or conveniences. It combines feeling, intuition, thinking, and the ability to share these, our true treasures of humanity, with other people. It's fine to learn to be an individual, but you don't want to ever forget that the worst aspect of individualism is a fundamental inability to understand that other people feel things, that other people have their lives, and that in your dealings with everyone from your friends to those who are not your friends and never will be, you must remember that they have a reality too. We are all creating a society together. Society is not made up of only the people that you like, who share your political views, who share your spiritual views, who like the same things as you do, and who appreciate and love you. Society is made up of people who have opinions that you do not approve of, that you dislike, or even abhor. Society is made up of people with whom you don't want to share a park bench. But they are human beings too, and we all live in this world together, and we must listen to each other and argue and exchange on the same human level. There is such a thing as human society. We must all play our role in it with generosity, tact, and an ability to take a long view. We must also keep an eye on those who we give charge and power over us to see that they do the same, or then to reject them. José Saramago, the Portuguese writer who won the Nobel Prize in 1998 and whom I was privileged to have visit at Rideau Hall and who gave a wonderful talk here in French at the National Archives, wrote the novel Blindness, which was made into a film last year, a parable about an entire country where everyone suddenly goes blind. He wrote it, he said, to remind those who might read it that we pervert reason when we humiliate life, that human dignity is insulted every day by the powerful of our world, that the universal lie has replaced the plural truth, that man stops respecting himself when he loses the respect due to his fellow creatures. You have the chance now, as you go out in the world armed with your degree, to learn that life doesn't work out always the way you want. Or you'll find that there are times that the easiest and most expedient ways are not the right ones to take. You must always hold to a stance which admires excellence, respects other human beings just because they are human too, and to respect their way of life, and to contribute to the kind of country which has given you the opportunity to have this education and to get this start in life. For yourself, there are two things that you can do which I consider to be very important. One is to really know yourself, and the other is to continue living your life with joy. About knowing yourself, which is the note I want to close on. The Gnostic Gospel, according to St. Thomas, did not make it in with the other four to the New Testament of the Bible when the other Gospels did. It's part of the literature of all religion. I'm sorry it didn't have a place, because then we'd read it more, and it lately has had a big comeback. But it's a wonderful read, mainly because it's short. And I want to leave you with something that is said in it. It's the truest statement about human nature I've ever come across, and now I can tell you with hindsight that I've had during the almost 50 years since I graduated from university. I hope it will help you, maybe not now, but in your future, if you remember it. You've started with a fine Canadian education. You have fulfilled a dream, or a number of dreams. You have a tremendous platform from which you can learn to do so many things. But I want you to remember these words of St. Thomas. If you find out what is within you, and you bring out what is within you will save you. If you find out what is within you, and you do not bring out that which is within you, what is within you will destroy you. Find out what is within. Bring out what is within. Make this the underlying purpose of your life. Thank you.